Hi there, and welcome to the MPI Global Leadership Training video series. In this is episode Communications. My name is Judy Holler, and I'm thrilled to be here as the moderator for this panel, and I'm also a very proud member of the Chicago area chapter. Now, you're probably wondering who these distinguished gentlemen are on the call with me, and I'm going to get to that in just a momento. But before we begin, I want to say to you, congratulations on being a leader. You have just made an awesome choice. And really, it's one that can open incredible doors, but it's all how you work it. And that's why we're here today. We're here today to set you up for success and help you rock the communications for your chapter. So, I can't do that alone. I am not the expert in this area, so I've brought along the experts with me, and I've got three of them to my left, and let's start with some introductions. So first and foremost, let's introduce Chapter Business Manager for MPI Global, Mr. Brian Lavin. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Judy.
Great. Second up, we've got Mr. Chris Wetzel. Do I say that right?
You have it exactly right. Nicely done, Judy. Nice to see you.
Great. And Chris is actually the president-elect for the Greater Orlando chapter. So good to see you, Chris. And last but very not least, we've also got with MPI Global, Mr. Randy Crabtree himself, who is the Membership Marketing Manager. So, Randy, hello.
Hey, Judy. How are you today?
Awesome, awesome.
Thank you.
So we're going to cover a lot of stuff today, and before we go over the overview of what you can expect watching this video, I want to say to you, what's so great about this is that it's online, and that means it's on demand, and that means you can watch these videos when you want them and how much you want to watch them. You can share them with your friends. You can watch us all day long if you want, because we're going to be that entertaining. But the point here is, this is here for you, so go at your own pace. Take notes. I really encourage you to take some notes. Write down a list of questions, and then you can ask these cues to your chapter business manager or folks within your chapter to get further clarification. But you can pause it, you can work at your own pace, and the point is there's no pressure here. We really want to get you all the good content and encourage you to work at your own pace. So, what are we going to talk about today? Here's the key overview points of what's going to happen. One, we're going to talk about your role as a communications leader. We're going to talk about event and chapter communications, business communications. We're going to dig into building your brand and talk about MPI brand standards. And then lastly, we're going to button it up and really going to get you to understand all the resources that are at your fingertips, and we're going to help you understand how to leverage your CBM in your success. And CBM is, to clarify, your chapter business manager. So I think we need to get this party started. And Brian, let's kick it off with you. No pressure, right? So for the communications leader watching this video, they just joined the communications team. What is really the key area of responsibilities for them and their key role?
Sure. Yeah. Judy, I think that's a really big question. So I think about the communications department almost in like 4 buckets of responsibilities, if you will, ranging from highly strategic down to a little more tactical. I think, first and foremost, being in the communications department, you're in such a unique position because you are the conduit for all the awesome programs and events and initiatives that are happening throughout your chapter and relaying that information back to your membership. So first and foremost, your responsibility is you are the voice of the chapter as a leader and as a leader in your own committee. So with that comes a certain amount of responsibility. You need to be sure to put plans in place to streamline all of that communication and bridge the gap between your membership committees, your education committees, your special events committees, and any other initiatives that your chapter is going through. And put a plan together, a marketing plan in place that will help guide your committee members into actually communicating that information out to the membership. The great thing about a marketing communications plan is, we're going to talk a lot about that today, is it will help you be a proactive communicator and market a little more proactively rather than reactionary that a lot of chapters fall into. The next step on that is you're really kind of tied into all of the communication channels now as a leader of the marketing communications committee. So under your responsibility follows the website, your social media channels, any email marketing campaigns you're doing, print and online publications, any sort of one-off things like a postcard out to your members, or maybe you're putting on a regional program and you need some marketing support. So all of those channels are going to fall underneath you and your new role as a director or a VP. With that being said, the third part of that responsibility is your team. That's a lot of different channels to manage on a daily basis. You need to put the right team in place. And as a leader, it's your responsibility to not only build that team, but to coach, advise, mentor, and help guide your committee members to do the work, but also fulfill the commitments and goals and obligations and strategic vision of that role. And then last but certainly not least, I think especially in the VP position, as well as some of the director positions, is the real partnership between your chapter business manager, like myself or one of my other team members, and Randy's team back at Global, to help get the content out of all the great initiatives that are happening at the global level. We've done a lot of research, and it shows that a lot of our members are consuming MPI as a brand at the chapter level, and because you're the folks that they know and are comfortable with. So we really rely on you as a partnership to be able to help spread the word on great events like WEC or new initiatives like the Meetings Move Us Forward campaign, and really work in partnership between global and the chapter level to make it a seamless experience for your member. So those are kind of my 4 key areas of responsibility.
That's great. It sounds right on the money. And you spoke a little bit about a marketing plan, a chapter marketing plan. I'd love to continue that conversation. And I'm going to bring Chris into this because, Chris, word on the street is you've had a lot of experience in this area as VP when you were in the VP role for the Orlando chapter. So I'd love to hear about you, about what you did to really increase your branding presence in the local market there in Orlando.
Yeah, Judy, we had a pretty identical, a challenge that I know many chapters can probably identify with, and that is that we are in Orlando. There's obviously a lot of hotels here, and there's very, very few meeting planners here. So we wanted to take on a task of kind of rebranding the chapter and creating more value, or showing more value to the membership, besides the fact that they should be attending meetings just to meet meeting planners and be handed RFPs. So when you go through a rebranding, it's actually a lot harder than an initial branding of something, right? Because you have to change perception. So a few of the steps that we took to do that before we could even put together the marketing plan, we really wanted to go through somewhat of a discovery phase. And that was really the first step we did, was to poll members, talk to members, find out what they wanted, what their needs specifically were, and then be able to uncover any kind of challenges that they were having, and then determine really how we can fulfill the needs that they had. Because, again, we're in a business to supply resources to our members, essentially. So we went through that discovery phase. We discussed it with the chapter members, and everything that we looked at from that point forward regarding the rebranding was very member-centric. So any efforts that we put in really revolved around how does this affect the member specifically? How does it enhance their experience by being a member of MPI? So we actually, after collecting that data and that information, we sort of came up with a little bit of a plan. But the first thing we did was we actually made a change on the board level. We went from having a VP of Marketing and Communications and then a director to having a VP of Marketing Communications, then a director of marketing and a director of communications, which is a little bit unusual. However, we felt that there were 2 very distinctive roles that those 2 people could play. We also then were looking at them as going through a rebranding, there's a lot of steps that are involved in that. We wanted to make sure we had some people that might be great on a director side, but we knew we had some very strong opportunities with some individuals to bring them on the board from the communication standpoint. So part of that was us able to recruit somebody that has a lot of experience in the communications world, whether it be email marketing or website development or social media marketing. So we together took the information that we had, and we did produced a rebranding proposal that we proposed to the board, kind of going through where we were, what we want to be based on the feedback that we've gotten, got budget approval, and we, as many chapters struggle with this, we were able to rebrand our chapter. I think we came in, we budgeted $2,000 total. And I think we came in at $1,100, and that's with a brand new website, brand new communications, everything new. So we really took a look at a lot of the resources we had at our disposal and made sure we maximize those resources as best we can. We set up some timelines for the rebranding when we wanted to be able to launch, which we finished about 30 days ahead of schedule. And then we also rebranded the chapter, but we ended with what chapter metrics were, what the chapter goals were, along with what the members wanted. When we first started, we sat down, we developed a really strong value proposition to kind of show our members that it's not just the reason you join MPI is not just to meet a planner if you're a supplier and get an RFP for them. That's the perception that we had to change. We had to show a lot of the other values. So we developed a pretty strong value proposition and displayed that in different areas on the new website and on the email blast and so on and so forth, so that people could start to feel like this is something different than they were used to. Make sense? We built the team up. We actually, this is where we kind of treated the committee like we treat the chapter like a business. And we sort of did the same thing with the committee. The current committee we had, we repurposed many of them who might have been doing an okay job in several areas, but they might have been better suited on other departments within the chapter or within the other committees. And then we sort of hired strategic people that, based on the needs and based on the goals that or the objectives that we had. So we looked specifically for people that were active in social media. We looked specifically for people that were that had some sort of knowledge regarding websites and content marketing and all those other parts that go into a marketing effort or even a rebranding effort. It was a pretty collaborative effort. We got a lot of feedback from the board, from the other departments on the board. And we also had taken the steps of kind of creating these liaison positions. So when we restructured the committee, a lot of the challenges I know many chapters face is getting information either about events or about the charity you're supporting. It's getting that information to marketing in order to get the information out through the different channels. So we created a role called liaisons, and we have one for each other department. They actually they're on the marketing committees, they're on the marketing committee, but they actually go to the meetings of the different departments, so education, special events, and so on and so forth. They're the ones that help those departments define the messaging that they want to put out. And it also gets done on time because that person is on our committee, they're going to their meeting, and they're the ones that are actually bringing that information to us. So many chapters I know struggle with the fact that they're just not receiving the information in time for marketing to put something out in time. And we went from being on in some cases 3 or 4 week turnaround to now we have our annual calendar scheduled out 18 months. So we know everything that we're doing 18 months out, including the communications team. And they're also so prepared that they can take a little bit more time and develop some really great information that we can put in front of the members. So it was definitely a lot of work and it was a challenge, but when you put the right people in place and you have the right resources and you make smart decisions and you make them together and you celebrate successes as you go, it's amazing how much you can accomplish. So we've been getting nothing but rave reviews from the members now about how different our chapter is compared to what it was. So obviously what we did had a pretty nice impact. So.
Wow. Thanks so much for sharing that story. And I think a big shout out goes out to Chris and Team Orlando for making it happen. And I can't tell you how important it is to just start and to start before you're ready, because that's how you figure it all out. And that's how it all comes together. And I love that you also touched on the people. We have to build the right tribe and put the right people in the right places, because that is when doors start to fly open. So it sounds like you hit the nail on the head, and I hope that the new leaders watching this video took a lot of notes. And if you're watching this, just keep an eye out for Chris. Maybe you'll see him at the Chapter Business Summit or at the WEC this summer to ask him any more in-depth questions about that process. But well done, and I think that's going to really serve our new leaders. So thanks for sharing that story. So Randy, I'd love to toss it to you here, and I want to talk globally a little bit and find out what can MPI headquarters do to help a chapter really maintain and build its brand standard.
Well, when we look at the MPI brand is our members. That's the face of MPI. And you're probably familiar with the I Am MPI campaign program. And we have now gone back to our roots. We've taken that program and we've created this mosaic of our total community of membership across the globe. And we have integrated that into tons of our marketing and communications. You'll see it in our email headers. Recently, you saw that we took our magazine and we took it back to its original roots. It's now the Meeting Professional, because that's who our members are. It features our members, and it features their stories, it features their successes, and it shares it with the entire community. So our brand is our people, and we're bringing that story home in a very, very strong way from the global perspective. And when you look at your brand, there are certain issues that you want, and that is consistency in what MPI stands for across the globe. And that is an immediate recognition of MPI when they see a certain symbol. And that is our logo. So we have created the logo that you see with the globe. It says Meeting Professionals International. We have a few versions of that are available. But we have logos for every chapter, which is the standard chapter logo. And that's available to you on your Chapter Leaders resource page. And there's several different files that you can use based on varying different needs for printing or for web, etc. So you'll have access to those. You're going to, at times, going to want to have a different special logo for any of your special events. And all we ask is that you run that by us. Jeff Daigle is what we like to call our brand master, because he's been with MPI for a very, very long time, and he knows the look and feel and the voice and how MPI is to be represented in a very compelling way. So we just ask that you run any of your special logos for special events through Jeff, and he can be reached at on the contact page. If you go to About MPI and you're logged in, you'll see how you can get a listing of everyone here at headquarters. It has their phone number and email address, easy to get to. So that's pretty much it.
Great. Thanks so much, Randy. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and stay with you while I got you on the mic here. In today's economic climate, right, it's all about engaging and embracing our members, and that has never been more important because of that economic climate. So how does the communications department really drive and support those initiatives?
Well, there's a lot of ways. Let's just focus on the key ones at this time, because you're right. Engagement and having that conversation with the member and knowing that member is extremely important. So let's walk through some ways that we can work through this and understand it. Knowing your member demographics is extremely important. Not one chapter across the globe of MPI is like the other. They're different, they're unique, and they're composed of different types of professionals. So know your management of the demographics and segment your audiences that you're talking to and have specific messages for them. And that's very important with the planners, suppliers, students, and the faculty. And within that, you have several sub-segments. So you may have programs of education that are geared and targeted toward pharma. You may have programs that are targeted toward hotel suppliers. Know your community and know their needs. A really important thing is when you're at meetings and you're at networking events, mingle, listen to your members, ask questions, ask what they want to know, what they want to hear, what they'd like to receive more of from your chapter. Knowing their needs and who they are is very important in the role of a VP of communication. There's a handy tool called data discovery reports that come to the chapters on a monthly basis that reveal the changes in the demographics, what's happening with retention, membership growth, etc. It's a very compelling document of information, and your chapter business manager is there to be by your side to walk you through it if you have any questions. And this information is just so key in understanding it fully so that you can strategically guide your communications, again, to the audiences that you're trying to reach. Important things that need to be communicated and probably have segmented types of messages with them are member value. Member value is different for a supplier. Member value is different for a planner. And we want to understand that and communicate that way when you're speaking and communicating with those audiences. It's very important to have a good grasp on your member benefits and how they apply to individual member types. And it's also very important that you have that type of messaging woven throughout your recruitment and your retention programs as you go through those campaigns. And then look at any upcoming live appearances. We have a booth that we can ship to you from MPI. The request form is on your chapter leaders resource site. Chapter business manager will walk you through that. And we'll just ask if you pay for the cost of the shipping, but that's that standard MPI brand look and feel will be available to you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Randy. That's great. And I just want to reiterate the data discovery reports, because I know for us in our chapter in Chicago, they are critical. And I believe that really people get scared of the data. People freak out. They see graphs, they see charts, they see conversion numbers, and they don't know what to do with it. But I know that we have put together information that lives in the membership portal of the chapter leader resource page underneath membership bootcamp that defines every graph and breaks it down for you to like a second grade level, so that for the folks that don't like to read those graphs, they can quickly understand what we're talking about in those graphs. So you can use them for education. You can use them for marketing and communications like what we're talking about, but they can also be really impactful for your membership and understanding who your people are. So I'm glad you touched on it, because I have a sweet spot in my heart for those data discovery reports. So thanks for touching on them.
We're very glad to hear that.
Yes. So Brian, I want to bring you into the mix right now. So as someone who's doing this all the time, what about the other communications channels, right? What about publications and websites and social media? What do the folks watching this need to know about that stuff?
Sure thing. Yeah, I mean, I think, those three are probably your most commonly used across all of the chapters. But, just from a publication standpoint, I'll leave websites and social media up to the experts on the panel as well. But from a publication standpoint, I think one of the biggest things you need to realize is, this is where we're talking about newsletters or your member directory or really anything else that you're making as a tangible piece that's going to go out to your membership. And I think one of the things that chapters seem to be running into is this idea of, do my publications live online as an e-newsletter, or do we still need to print something and mail it out to our members? And, it's funny, when we were getting ready for the call, we kind of talked about this a little bit, and Randy brought up a great point that at the Dallas office, when the staff walks in the morning, the first thing they do is check their mailboxes, and then they go to their desk and check their email and everything else. So the idea that you want to really understand your membership and if they like receiving things in the mail and digest information that way. Sometimes it's nice to get a tangible hard copy member directory or newsletter from your chapter. Just another way of reaching out to them. With those publications, you also want to make sure that they're timely and that the information in them is not only up to date, but in the course of your year is appropriate for the time that it's being sent out. You wouldn't want your member directory with your board of directors listing going out in April. It would probably be better to have that delivered in August when we have a new board in place or something along those lines. And then I think back to branding, it's the idea of keeping your branding consistent across the board, whether it's your website, your social media channels, or a printed newsletter or directory. It's making sure that everything is that cohesive look and stays with that same theme for not only your chapter, but also globally. So, and then I think, Randy, did you want to talk just a little bit about MPI Global's publications and kind of how those look and feel and when they come out and things like that?
Absolutely. Thank you. I touched earlier on the Meeting Professional, which is our regular monthly magazine that comes out featuring the member on the cover and just chock full of stories and tips, best practices, successes, and some of the more flavorful aspects of this industry and what our professionals live through every day. We also have regular weekly newsletter that's sent out by email called MPI Pulse. This is helpful because we're scanning outside industry news items constantly. And what we like to do, this comes out every Tuesday, is we like to just give you the big highlights, the big nuggets, the big aha bits of news and information that have happened in the previous week. So we are being your eyes and ears for you when you get that MPI Pulse. We're trying to share with you compelling, relevant, useful information that you can use in your day-to-day lives as a meeting professional. The other is an MPI Spotlight. Now, that comes out every other week of the month on a Thursday. And the first Spotlight of the month goes through the MPI content that we've created from blogs, from our TMP, and from other sources we have internally. And it just highlights for you the key items that we have put together. So it makes it easier for you to synthesize that. And the second edition of that bi-monthly product is focused on careers, career development, new changes in the industry, some of the more recent jobs that have been posted on MPI Career Connections. And you'll notice that the banner at the top of the newsletters and the color in the left-hand corner of the Meeting Professional each month all match because it's all integrated. And all of these items are designed to bring you the most relevant, compelling, and useful information.
That's great. That's great. Thanks so much, Randy. And I do want to stay with you just a little bit, but I also want to hear from Chris as well. But let's talk a little bit about social media. How about it?
Well, it's out there and it's exploding, don't you think, Chris?
It's a lot to manage.
It's a real challenge because you've got to keep up with it real time in some ways. In other ways, you don't. There's a lot of tools. I think the most important item that we were talking about when we were getting ready for this session, Chris and I back and forth, is that when you think about the committee that you're putting together, think about those who are active in social media and find your experts and let them help you guide through that process, bring recommendations to you to show you how to manage that. Most of our chapters are using three main channels. Facebook, they have a Facebook fan page. They have LinkedIn, where a lot of conversations occur, and they have Twitter. And basically, we see that they're using Facebook as an informal communication device, throwing relevant information out, letting them know about upcoming events. The deeper conversations about what's happening in the marketplace, what's happening in industry, how can I source this, seems to be happening in the LinkedIn groups that the chapters have occurred. And Twitter is a general sounding board of what your members are thinking on a real-time basis. It's also huge in support of your events to carry on that conversation and engagement that occurs at an event, but it also allows you to look into that and understand what your attendees, what your members are talking about. It's important to make sure that you're sharing with them relevant information. Your communications in these media is a mix. If the members get a sense that all this is to try to get me to come to the next meeting, if all this is to get me to come to a local or regional educational conference, they kind of turn off. But if it's real engaging conversations, throwing out ideas, letting people express thoughts, then it becomes a channel, once again, that's not only useful for you for engagement, it's useful for you for grabbing understanding and knowledge of what is interesting to your members and what you need to be communicating to them. Now, Chris, you've had some wonderful experiences in the development of social media usage in Orlando. So what can you share with us?
Yeah, I think, Randy, you brought up a lot of really great points, actually. Some of the things like making sure you put together a social media team. It's relatively easy to do because all you really need to do is to look and see who's liking, sharing, commenting on your channel already or on that channel already, and then assuming they're members, identify them and reach out to them and ask them if we kind of called it a social media militia a little bit in hopes of, continuously expanding our reach through those folks as well, because many of them had many friends that were involved in the meetings and events industry. So that's proved to be great. We also did look a lot, when we were looking at those folks, obviously millennials we want to target. It was critical for us, just as far as chapter growth goes. So getting them involved now in a sense of doing something that they actually love to do, it was really an easy proposition for them. It was really simple to get them to want to get involved. So we made kind of the ground rules clear, the goals clear, the objectives clear with that team of people. That's led by a young lady on our board named Elizabeth, who's our director of communications, who does a lot of social media for Hard Rock. So perfect person to be involved in that. We did talk a lot about the strategy and what we wanted to see. We did not want it to be buy from us, come to our event, buy from us all the time. It was more so we went by that 80-20 split of, maybe 80% of the time you're just putting out either fun information or useful content or something to try to drive engagement in some way. And then 20% of the time we would talk about maybe the upcoming events we have or getting involved in some way. We've been able to recruit as a result of social media as well. It's really amazing. People struggle with recruiting committee members, and it's really because they're not asked all the time. I mean, somebody just doesn't approach them and ask them to join a committee. But it's really simple to do that on social media. It takes all of about 2.5 seconds to put a comment out saying that our membership team is looking for some additional committee members. So we've been able to do some pretty significant recruiting and use it for that as well. It's been very, very effective. I will say that, Facebook's made a lot of changes lately, and I actually just attended a social media world in San Diego a couple of weeks ago, and those folks are up in arms. Many brands are up in arms about Facebook and the way that they've changed their algorithm and the fact that if you like something doesn't necessarily mean you're going to see everything that organization posts unless that organization pays to have you see it. So much of what we've now gone to is we try to have the content that we're sharing live on our website, of course, and we're also trying to capture those individuals on our website through having them, maybe have to give us their email address in order to download something. So we're just expanding our database on real estate that we own as opposed to relying on the opportunities that, Facebook provides. Now, it's still a great avenue, and it still can be extremely effective. But the point is, I would encourage chapters to think about how they can capture the data and own the data themselves rather than just making sure they're not relying solely on something like Facebook. And LinkedIn could go the same way. I'm not sure, but it's just been very effective for us to manage it that way.
Yes, very, very helpful tips.
Yeah.
Just you were talking about volunteer. We are accepting applications during the taping of this session today, and I've been using social media and been able to drive 400 visits, unique visits, to our volunteer application website just through social media using Twitter and Facebook. Lastly, follow me on Twitter. I am at MPI Randy C. Can't even remember mine. So please do that.
That's great. That's what we need up here, not our names. We need our Twitter handles up here.
Right.
That's right. That would have been good. We should have hung that behind us, right?
Totally. That would have been marketing. We should all have our websites back here. What are we thinking? See, guys, even the pros find opportunities. So I love this conversation. There's so many things we could talk about right here, but I really loved what Chris said. If you were only managing your communications on Facebook and not utilizing the home base of your website, you're making a mistake. We've got to be funneling that traffic through the home base, because Mark Zuckerberg could decide to take Facebook down tomorrow and all of your fans and all of your communication goes with it. So I talk a lot about this idea of, as a business owner, you've got to have a home base. It's important. I'm playing around in Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, and I'm using those applications appropriately for the platform that they are. But man, my business has to live on my website, right? Because I control it. And as a chapter, you control and own and manage your home base. So I love that Chris is thinking that way. Orlando's thinking that way. I know Elizabeth. She is a rock star. So you guys are really heading in that right direction. So use your website to build a list and capture those emails and let that serve you. So I love the stuff we're talking about. Chris, I want to stay with you for a little bit. Let's talk about your website while we're talking about it. What are some of the best practices you're using in Orlando outside of list building?
I would say one of the critical things is number one, as Randy had mentioned, and I think Brian, you had mentioned as well, you got to know your members. You have to know what they want, what type of information or content is important to them. And then my opinion is, I own a marketing agency, I like to keep things simple. The simpler, the better as far as I'm concerned. Put clear, concise, updated content on your website, easily accessible, it's easy to find. When we went through the rebranding, part of it, we rebranded our whole website, took everything down and kind of started it up again. And it was amazing how much content we actually pulled out of the old website that was just confusing or not up to date, or it wasn't easily found. And then we found some great content that was in it that was hidden 50 pages deep. So I think making sure that the content's up to date, relevant, the layout. If you get a chance to go to the goampi.org, you can see the design and the layout. We took a lot of time really to figure that out and to make sure we were keeping the concept and the website simple, but making sure that we did the layout, appealing colors, kind of the typical things you'd look for in a website. But you want to make it easy to capture data as well. So I think it's important to make sure that if you are driving individuals to the website, that there's a clear value proposition when they first get there. Our site used to be buy from me, buy from me, buy from me right on the home page there. When you go there, next event, and here, spend money. And we really adjusted that to show more of the value of becoming an MPI member, not just for our chapter, but becoming an MPI member in general. We really pointed out that value, and then it does have a calendar of events and other things that are going on for people that are interested in learning when some of the next events are. The one challenge I think many chapters struggle with, and we looked at this a lot, is if you're trying to generate revenue from your website, it could be the only way I've seen that done successfully is if you have a designated either committee member or somebody within the committee, whether it's marketing or sponsorship or something else, that has a clear mission to go out and sell that advertising space. Because I know I've actually had a lot of calls from many other chapters asking, hey, how do you guys sell your ad space? And I'm not going to lie, there's times where we don't sell it a whole lot either. So the point is maybe use that more and combine that with other types of sponsorship opportunities that you're offering some other vendors or some other suppliers or whatever your audience is. But unless you have a designated person to do that, it could become a little bit difficult to do. That would be my only advice on using your website to generate traffic or to generate revenue. And you also want to make sure it's not too much in your face. We designed one area on our site, on the right side of our site, that showcases our sponsors. That's where we put banner ads, but we're certainly not going to put a banner ad somewhere right over our value proposition or even at the bottom of the page. We really wanted to make sure that it was strategically done well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Great stuff, Chris. Great stuff. So, Randy, I want to, we've talked a lot about content and generating new and exciting information for the committee to go back and share with the membership. So I want to ask you, what are some additional resources outside of the chapter that are available?
In your position, you have to have your thumb on what's new and exciting in this industry. And we are dedicated here of providing you access to those resources, that information for you to share in your role as VP of Communications out to your chapter. So let's just walk through some of the things that MPI Global has available to you to help you provide content that is fresh, new, relevant. And MPIweb.org is obviously a huge resource for you, and I'll give you some tips on that. My team, we sit down each Friday and go through all of our communications that are coming up for the following week. Most of it's already been pre-planned, so we just give ourselves a check, or we fill in some other information that we knew we needed to put there. So we talk about the MPI homepage. The content on that homepage, if you've seen it, sometimes it has 6 boxes, sometimes it has 4. We actually change that at the beginning of every week. And so if you just constantly check MPI Web once a week, please feel free to pull any of that information that you think is of interest and relevant to your chapter and use it. And that's what it's there for you to use as a content tool. Also, with this industry changing so fast, again, pulling stories from the meeting professional, which is really staying on the leading edge of what's happening out there in our industry in terms of development, professional activities, etc. Leverage those stories. That's what they're there for. If you see something in the spotlight, I see a lot of chapters that go through and just lift content that we've had out there and send it on out to their membership. Because you've got to know that there's so many different ways to gather information and to seek information. If you communicate especially to your members, then we're just going to keep providing you the content that you can use. Recaps of major events like WEC, EMEC in Europe, the Chapter Business Summit that happens in September, or the Chapter Leaders Forums that happen throughout the year at our major events. Have someone either blog right after that event and share that learning that team went through that attended those events, or their personal stories, or the story of their transformation or discovery that occurred at WEC, and bring that back and share it with those who were unable to attend, because I think they're going to find it very interesting and want to attend at the next one. And believe it or not, we've also discovered in our data that those who attend WEC have almost double retention higher. So it's a very important thing. Go to the research page. We have tons of research on the future of meetings, the value of meetings, strategic meeting management. We even have a library within our strategic meeting management research that allows you to sort all of the content that we have in there by beginning, intermediate, and pro. And there's over 70 different pieces of content there that you can use, leverage in any way possible in your communication plans, and share that out with your members. And the other thing is Chapter Leaders Resource page. That has a lot of useful information. We put our marketing programs and our toolkits, our engagement kits for various programs we have here at Global, as well as it has the best practices that are relevant and specific to your role. And your chapter business managers definitely walk you through how to best use that tool as well.
Great. All kinds of good information. I feel like we could talk for quite a while, and this could be a breakout session in itself, but I think we are getting close to wrapping up. And, you know, just thinking with July 1st coming up, and these new leaders are moving into the communication role pretty quickly here, and I thought it might be cool to get some advice from each one of you. Like, what would you say to the new director or new VP of communications so that they can really go forward and rock it? So, Brian, let's start with you.
Sure. I think my biggest piece of advice is hit the ground running. If this is your first time on the board or you're a returning board member in a VP position, this is your opportunity to leave your legacy with your chapter and kind of leave your stamp on MPI, if you will. So if there's something that you want to do for your chapter, grab it, run with it, own it, and start today. You know, really, your role starts today and goes all the way through to the end of your term. So own it, leave your legacy, and just push through and get done as much as you can.
I love it. I love it. What about you, Chris?
I would say if you're first starting out, I think it's important to understand the chapter, do your research, and make sure you're clear on what your member needs are. I don't think it's kind of sales 101, right? It's when you understand or you uncover needs and then you fulfill needs. And I think every department plays a part in that, especially in marketing communications. I think if we're not delivering what members want, you're going to have a challenge. So I think it's important for us to uncover needs, develop a strong value proposition around being a member. Why should somebody take notice? Why should they be a member? And make sure that value is proven and is effectively communicated to your membership. I also think, you need to treat your committee, the chapter, the board. I think it is a business, and that's really what I think made a difference from when I had come on board as VP of Communications. I really took it to more of a business level because it really is a business. So you may not like to think about that. Yes, it's a volunteer organization, but the bottom line is we collect money from people, and when you do that, you automatically become a business. So I think if you go into it with that mindset and you have everybody else on board, your committee members and everybody else on board thinking that way, there's a lot higher level of accountability. And there's also a lot more joy in celebrating successes. So I think it's important to make sure that you're recognizing committee members, make sure that you're giving them tasks and enabling them and inspiring them to do things, inspiring them to learn. But I think if they treat it more from a business perspective, they seem to get more out of it, rather than, oh yeah, I might just volunteer and I might do something. If you're treating it like you would any other business, you hire committee members, you treat it that way, I think it's going to be a lot more effective. Overall, I think all your initiatives are going to be a lot more effective.
I love that. Spoken like a true entrepreneur. Randy, what about you?
Well, first of all, let me just say that we're taping this during National Volunteer Week, so I want to recognize all of the volunteer efforts that you're putting into this position. Volunteer leaders are the engine of MPI, and we really appreciate what you do. I would say have fun, engage, inquisitive, and listen. And I have a challenge over the course of your leadership year that at every event that you go to for your chapter, be it a formal event or informal event, you seek someone out that you don't recognize, that you haven't seen and you haven't had a conversation with, and ask them why they're there and what they want out of MPI. And that will let you get to a more personal level of communication for your members.
Well said. I have learned a lot from you guys on this call, and I think we could talk for quite some time, but we are going to go ahead and wrap this up. And I just want to say that for all the new leaders watching this, welcome to your new role. Thank you for leading, and I will reiterate what Randy said. Have a blast. Go out there, take risks, start before you're ready, and just try new things. That is how you'll open incredible doors. So, Brian, I think I should toss it to you just to close us up and get us out of here. Any final words?
Sure. Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, I want to thank the panel members and Randy and Chris for taking the time to join us today. Incredible knowledge and great insights on the role. So, gentlemen, I appreciate your insights 100%, and I know the folks listening do as well. Judy, thank you so much for being a part of this and moderating the discussion. You're right. I think we could have gone on forever, and I really appreciate you being a piece of it as well. And to all the leaders out there watching, thank you all for what you do, and I wish you nothing but the best in the upcoming year. Remember, your CBMs are here to help you. We want to make your lives as easy and successful as possible. So loop us in, let us know where we can help out. And then in follow-up to this video, you will be getting a request to have a call with your CBM to address any specific questions you might be having or things like that in a little more of a group setting. So thank you all very much, and have an awesome year. We'll see you around.
Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.